It is extremely important to understand why you should take your career choice seriously. In this video, we will help you understand the importance of making the right career choice for yourself. So, why is your career choice so important? It is important because it determines a lot of things in your life, including number 1, quality of life. Your career choice plays a huge role in deciding where you live, how flexible your life is, and the kinds of things you are able to do in your free time. Number 2, identity. Ask any elder person about their career and they will tell you about it as a part of their identity. They'll say something like, I am a journalist, instead of, I report news. Notice how everybody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not, what do you want to do when you grow up? This shows that your career choice shapes your identity. Number 3, impact. Every human life touches thousands of other lives in so many different ways. If you select any 60-year-old person who is about to retire, take a time machine, find him as an infant, throw that infant into trash, and then come back to the present day, you'll find that a countless number of things around you have changed. So whatever career you choose, the world will be affected by it. Anything that determines your quality of life, your identity, and the impact that you make should be taken very seriously. And that includes your career choice also. So we hope that this short video could help you understand the importance of making the right career choice. Having done that, we will now move forward to start our career counseling course. We are pretty excited and we hope you are too. So let's begin. See you.
Good evening, everyone. सबको स्वागत है. Welcome to day 69 of ProBano's live podcast. Firstly, I can already see a few members joining in. Anita ji, Shikha ji, I'm sure everybody is watching. So welcome. और आज हमारे 2.0 के लिए है Payal Gill, and we welcome her back. Thank you so much for coming back to our podcast. And Aditya and Sen, Mr. Sen, and of course Pragya running the stream. So Payal, thank you so much for coming back. Or guys, I do recommend going back and watching her first podcast. There's a lot to learn about the finance and banking sector. So do go back and check that out. So मैं जल्दी से introduce कर देता हूँ. Like I said, it's not going to be about Payal. Today topic पे discuss करेंगे. So लेकिन फिर भी I'll introduce Payal real quick. Payal Gill is a payments and banking subject matter expert. She's an anchor. She's a motivational speaker. And she loves traveling as well. So last time we discussed a lot about traveling as well, adventure sports as well. So guys, do check that particular podcast out. So आज का topic है, I think this is a very major topic and everybody gets confused as to okay guys what communication कैसे हो रहा है. So we're going to talk about the role of communication in your career, and we're also going to touch upon role of communication in your life in general. So guys, who wants to give a small introduction for the topic, today's topic? Payal, if you can, since you're the special guest for today.
Sure. So thank you for having me back actually. And, this is the version 2.0 of our earlier session. Obviously today we are touching upon a specific thing like communication. I think it's a very undervalued virtue. I think, people think that communication is just a very small part of anything that you do, whether it's work or home or personal life or professional life. But, I sincerely disagree. I think the role of communication in life is a very major one, and that's what we're going to obviously talk about today. There are different types of communication, right? So there's verbal, there is written, but people just undervalue something called as body language as well. So we'll talk about that communication today as well. So, communicating is not just about writing emails or just talking one way. Communication is a response to something that is told to you, to listen to something that is told to you, and then respond as well. So I think we will make sure that we talk about all these different types, positive, affirmative, your assertive communication and things like that. So obviously we will cover all the questions from the audience as well. But from my perspective, I think we should certainly cover this and anything else that you guys want to do. So,
Great, fantastic. I do want to maybe point this out. I think it's a quotation from a particular movie. I don't remember which one exactly. I think that's the first time I'm not remembering the movie. But this was the guy says you have to listen. When you're speaking, you have to stop speaking and listen. When you're speaking, you're not listening. So I think that's one very important. One very important characteristics for good communication. Also, Mr. Sen and Aditya, if you want to give us a brief introduction for today's topic. Firstly, who wants to go ahead?
Aditya, you go.
Okay. So I think today we are going to discuss obviously communication. Now with communication, it's not as simple as it sounds. It sounds very simple. Those who speak well. That's the first thing which comes to our head. But in what context? Are we speaking over phone? Are we speaking over a video call? Are we speaking in real? I think there's a difference between that, is what I've realized thus far. Then are we speaking well over email? Are we speaking well over WhatsApp messages? So you cannot write a really long WhatsApp message. Then you cannot write a very short email which explains nothing. So I think today we are going to discuss all that. It's not as simple as it seems, and today communication is over so many channels that you have to adapt very well. So let's say I'll just kind of discuss an example of social media in this case. Let's say you have to update your status on Twitter and you have to update your status on Facebook. Two completely different ball games. Now the way we are speaking here on Facebook, we can do long podcasts here. But let's say if we were to upload a video on Instagram, then we would have to probably do a 1 minute video. So for that we have to stick to some very small uh, timeline, and we have to only speak the things which are very necessary and not kind of insert things which are not necessary. So all these things are there, and I think from Payal, from Mr. Sain, today we are going to learn that how to communicate well. So really looking forward, Mr. Sain.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. Namaskar, everyone. Welcome. And good evening to all our audience, and good evening to Payal as well, and Aditya, and Samant, and Pragya in the background. That was communicating, what I just did. You start communication by saying hi, hello, acknowledging the presence of the people in your vicinity. I think that's the start of communication, whether it's spoken, written, even if it's a body language. Yeah, body language. So there's communication out there. So we communicate in so many different ways. We don't need to speak to communicate. And I think that we being social animals, the human beings being social animals, the one thing that we are born to be are communicators. And communication builds relationships. It connects yourself or myself to other human beings, other animals. You can communicate with any other animal, dogs, cats, wildlife, everyone. And with plants. You can speak to plants, actually. They'll listen to you. Have you ever tried it? You must. So communication is a very important element of our being. So we are incomplete without communication. Let's leave it at that, and let's see where we get.
Payal, there is a bit of feedback from the audience saying if you could mute your mic when you're not speaking. I think because the mic is picking up the speaker and echo there. Thank you so much. So guys, usually we have a bit of जैसा हवा आ रहा है वैसे conversation चलो. That is usually how we approach all our podcasts, with the journey and the questions, because we want to leave it open to the audience to ask whatever question that comes to their mind. Lekin, to give it some structure for today, we are going to follow a small pattern for the first couple of questions. So firstly, we're going to discuss the different set of skills that are needed for good communication. I'm not talking about career now. I'm just saying communication. It's not by job में बात करेंगे तो कैसा, public speaking, interpersonal skilling, nothing like that. Just communication in general. What are the set of skills that one needs to build? So, the one thing I can bring up is language, simple and intelligible language. I'll start off with that. Now, Payal, if you want to go about.
Okay, am I audible to everybody? Okay, great. So I think you are right, Samant. That was the first thing that even came in my mind, that it's very important. And I'm not talking about knowing English. I'm just basically saying that whatever language you know, and if you're able to communicate that language maybe in a better or a polished manner, then it definitely makes a lot of difference. Not that it will impact the quality of your work, but it'll definitely create a positive impression on the other person who's actually listening to you, and will actually get intrigued and want to listen to you more. That's really, really important, right? So I would say, well begun is half done sort of a thing, and that's valid for mostly everything, even this podcast for that matter, right? So I think the very important way, we talked about skills and we talked about, what we should do to be good communicators. I think the first thing is the listening bit. For example, people that are listening to this podcast, when they come up with those questions, and we said we're going to talk about something and then expect the questions. I think that's the repartee that we need to have. So I think effective listening is very, very important. So I want to throw a question at everybody, on this meeting as well as to the audience. So according to you, what is good listening skills? Just give it to me quickly in a sentence, and it's very, very simple.
Okay, who would want to go first? Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Nobody jumped on that, so I'll do that. So in my mind, good listening is when you are trying to empathize with the person who's speaking and you're trying to understand from what perspective and what is the aim he or she wants to achieve.
Okay, I agree with that. Mr. Sen, you unmuted yourself, so I'm expecting something really wise to come from you.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I can also learn it. That's the point.
Oh my God. Okay, so listening. Listening is when you listen with all your senses. So you have five senses. So you don't only listen with your ears, there's a sound bit. You listen with your eyes. You listen with your smell. You listen with the taste. You have to taste what is being said. And if you can understand what I'm saying, and you have to listen with feeling. You need to feel the words that's coming through. It's very simple, actually, if you can do it. But Payal, you're muted. Payal, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. So,
No problem.
whatever you guys said, and just to cherry on that entire icing would be, to listen, to not just respond, but understand and then respond. Every time it might not be necessary to reply to anything that we listen. I think it is sometimes just to intake in yourselves as to what is being said. It's not always going to be like, oh, if somebody is saying something, I need to respond to it. Unless it's a podcast where we are trying to discuss things and learn from each other, that's a different thing. But in a meeting, it's not always necessary that you want to show your presence, so you have to just say something just for the heck of it. Moving on to the career side of things, in terms of learning when to talk is a very, very important communication skill. इसका ये मतलब नहीं है that you have to wait for your turn. So if I say X, can you please talk now? So nobody is going to, in a meeting or in a very big, huge conference, nobody is going to really give you turns all the time. In the interest of time or the interest of criticality of what the discussion is, I think it's really, really important to understand when to speak. And I think that is a very important skill. And if you know you're not going to add any value, it's always advisable to zip the lip and maybe just intake and then understand and then respond. I think that's one very important skill, I would say. The second thing, which Mrs. Sen said very effectively, is to, when you're listening with your eyes, with your nose, with all your senses, it just simply means that you're also communicating back with them, and that's where the body language bit comes into play. The one that I actually started the conversation with, I think it's super important to give the right vibes, the way you're sitting, or the your emotions, or the way you are trying to be animated. I think that animation is super important in the way somebody else actually understands. It could come as aggressive, it could come as understanding, compromising, negative, positive, accepting, open, unopen. All of that actually is a part of body language. So just to give you a very, very nascent basic example, it's a textbook example actually, is when you're sitting like this, when somebody is talking. It just simply means two things. One is you're not interested, okay? And second is you're just not accepting what the other person is saying because you're closed. This is a closed pose to tell somebody that, you know what, I don't really care what you're saying. So it's a very wrong way. So when you're sitting in a meeting, either you put your hands open, or you're making notes, make sure that you are not sitting like this. It just sends a really incorrect message as far as I have seen or understood or experienced. I think that's a very negative, communication skill. That was just one example. There are many examples which we might cover later in the session.
I think you're absolutely right, Payal. Sorry, Samant, hold on. Now, that is about the speaking part of it. Now, there is the other form of communication, which is the written communication.
Yes.
And when we are in a corporate world, when we are in a career, whether that be in a corporate or in a non-corporate, not-for-profit, in a government, as an entrepreneur, whatever, there is something that we need to communicate, and that is the written communication skills. Because if we cannot write in a certain manner, we will never get the approval for going ahead to do whatever we want to do, whether it be for funds, whether it be for our ideas as an entrepreneur to be accepted and approved. So I think a very important aspect that we always tend to overlook is the written communication. And I think we should spend a little bit of time on how to actually structure a report or a piece so that you get the desired outcome that you want. That's very important because you're writing with a certain purpose. You want something. So you should be able to get that something. And I think that's the whole trick, the key to good communication. Samant, you raised your hand.
I want to go back to listening, the second point. To add on to my perspective as what makes a good listener would be the speaker doesn't feel alone. I think that what makes a good listener is that you make them feel that you are there with them at that moment in time. I don't know, थोड़ा philosophical है, but I hope you get what I mean. And to add on to what Payal said for the third point, when she said knowing when to speak, I think I always, Aditya and I keep talking, but knowing when to speak, that is well and good. Yes, granted, I'm not going to disagree, it's a given. But I think more importantly, knowing when to shut up. I think that's more important. That me, Aditya and I keep discussing. कि भाई चुप हो जा, अभी बात कर लिया तो 10 मिनट से घंटे 15 मिनट से बात कर रहा है. I think that self-awareness is also important as to, okay, do I need to keep quiet now? Is whatever I'm saying, is it necessary for the conversation? Does it have any kind of, educated background? Does it add anything to the conversation? I think that's it. Yeah, back to you guys.
Now, I want to ask a question to all three of you and the audience, which is, while communicating, I think we have all got into that situation where the guy who's listening said, okay, send it over and I'll look into it. How have you all dealt with this? Who's going to go first?
Mrs. N, could you repeat that? I didn't understand it.
I missed the
Yes.
question.
See, when we are communicating, whether it's in a meeting or in a conversation or whatever we are talking, right? And we have convinced the other guy to look at the things from our point of view. Now, the other guy said, okay, I understand what you're saying. Please send it over, email me whatever you have said. How would you go about doing that? Now, I have had this situation with ministers. They listen to you for 3 minutes. Okay, send it over. Approval de denge. And the trick is, if you cannot send it over in a proper way, that whatever minutes that you spoke with him is wasted. So how have you dealt with it?
So this happens many times, like I said, when we started talking about a boardroom conference or a conference where there are too many people and you're trying to make a point and, it sort of gets into a longer conversation. The usual response in corporate meetings or any meetings is, guys, in the interest of time, could you just email this to me and let's talk offline about it or whatever. And, this is, we agree with your point. And you rightly said that you get the approvals after you write it. I think there are multiple ways of written communication, especially in this case, we're obviously talking about an email. Especially in today's world where COVID has overtaken the whole world, I think it's really important that you are good at writing emails and actually good at doing conference calls and everything. But I think the first thing is to be articulate and to the point. Now, this is a very slippery slope that I just mentioned because I also said articulate, which means that you have to be detail oriented. At the same time, you have to be very, very to the point. What that means is that if you number point your email and you're sending it to a senior person, I think we did discuss this in the first podcast as well about some stats and some PPTs where senior people don't really have time to get into too many long history, geography, philosophical emails, but they will say, okay, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, this person had told me this. So I think it's very important to use the keywords that you used in your conversation in that email for sure, saying that, we met here, we discussed this, and you had, asked me to send this email. So as per our discussion, these are the below things that I want from you, and I need your help and appreciate it. So I think it works effectively if you try to relate your conversation in the email in the best and shortest possible manner. That quickly clicks or rings a bell, to relate that person because that person is clearly busy and that's why you've been asked to send an email. And that would be my first, approach or, when I take a whack at it, I think that's how I would start.
Okay, that's fair. Aditya, you want to add something on that?
I think what she said is very true. They don't teach us how to write emails in schools, and the format is very outdated, very outdated. So I learned writing emails, I think, in 11th and 12th in school. By that time, I was already writing a few emails, not too many, but a few. And the format was just very outdated. So, I could not even relate. How is this very similar to an actual email? I've seen an actual email on Gmail at that time. I had seen very dissimilar. So they don't teach us how to write. Let's say, so in school they will teach a formal letter, they'll teach an informal letter. For some reason you're still in this day and age writing informal letters, even though I do feel that there is a certain need for that, because that is what actually teaches you how to write an email. For lack of actual teaching of writing an email, they don't teach you how to write reports, as Mr. Sain mentioned. Plus, the biggest fact, they don't teach us how to write Facebook statuses and Twitter updates. I think they should teach that in schools. So I think a lot of our written communication, which is being taught in schools, is totally irrelevant. And I think they should adapt very well, because these are the actual forms of modern communication. In fact, they should teach us how to post a video in English. They should teach us this, because by the time I was in school, also we had Android phones all over, but nobody actually taught us how to make a video. So we had to learn all this for ourselves. I hope the students currently are getting to learn all these. So spoken and written communication, I think, have a lot of tools for us to deal with right now. How to type even a WhatsApp message, how to upload a WhatsApp status. I see some people, they will upload all 70 photos of their trip on their WhatsApp status. Now, who is interested in watching 70 photos unless it is a very close family member? So they'll probably have 1 or 2 views on each photo, because people drop off after the first or second. So these are things that should be common knowledge. Now, obviously, in this lack of proper teaching of communication, that's why we are here discussing communication, because we feel that we can do a better job. But at the other end, I think what Mr. Sain mentioned, there are two things I think when somebody asks me that, email it over to me. One, as Payal said, is somebody wants to save time, because when you speak, you tend to overflow a lot. When you're writing, you tend to stick to the point a bit more. Like you cannot just ramble on and on if you're writing, because then you are having to work hard. Speaking is less hard work than writing, which I've personally felt. So people will just go on and on, like I am doing right now. And second, and second thing is that sometimes people use it as a very good tool to avoid conversation. So let's say somebody cold calls you कि सर HDFC का क्रेडिट कार्ड ले लो, बहुत ही बढ़िया क्रेडिट कार्ड है, then you're like कि हाँ मेल तो मैं वैसे भी नहीं पढ़ूंगा, so you give him some random email which you never check कि मेरे को आप email कर दो. The person will never get time to email, even if she or she does, you'll never read it. It's the simplest thing to avoid. So I think sometimes people use it to avoid as well, but better to send an email and check it out if the person is interested or not. So I definitely agree with people who want to limit communication to less spoken and more written, because that's how things move a bit faster, is what I feel.
Samant, I will come back to my point of view on this later on.
So of course, I don't think obviously Aditya has more experience than me in like sending mails or talking about my sales and whatnot. And Mr. Sen and Payal, I think it goes without saying they have vastly more experience than me. But in the very limited experience that I do have in trying to convince people to buy my product or do something that I need them to do, obviously the first approach that I would do is call them over and see if they're even interested in something like this. Or the most common thing would be they won't say, okay, I'm not interested, go away, leave me alone. They'll say send me a mail, and I send them a mail, and the mail has all the information regarding that. And then I meet them if I know the person beforehand, which in my case most of the people that I do try to sell things to, I know them before. Cold calling में उतना involve होता नहीं हूँ. So I try to meet them, and when they try to procrastinate or they try to delay the process, I think the approach that I've been using in like I said, the limited experience that I have, is I tell them, okay, what would it take for us to close it right now? Okay, what is that something that you want in this, or what is my product lacking, which I can modify in the next 5 minutes that you want to close the deal right now? Where you're basically putting them in the spotlight में जब आ जाता है, they don't think straight, they I don't know, they take it on, भाई कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा, ego, or something happens like बहुत ही, and I'm probably going to very elementary level of marketing skills, but I don't know, it's been working for me. And like I said, I've picked up sponsors for college fest, and I've managed to maybe close 1 or 2 deals. Obviously, ProBano ke end pe nahi. That still I haven't been able to do. But yes, outside of work and during the college time, that did work for me. As putting in the spot, okay, what would it take for you to close a deal right now? You tell me. I think that worked for me. Yeah, Mr. Singh.
Okay, I think what both Aditya and Samant was very clear on his marketing and his sales pitch. Fair enough. Aditya was a mixture of the two. And Aditya, one thing which I think you mentioned, which is absolutely correct, is in school, whether it's in the 11th or the 12th, and I think it should be from the 11th and 12th, communication should be a subject, I believe. And what you talked about, Aditya, is about building a portfolio. That means, a portfolio will have your video, will have your Twitter, will have your, all the different things that you have. That's a portfolio. And Payal was more on the corporate side, which is absolutely spot on. Now, what I want to say is what we lack today, and we lack it in huge, huge dollops and amount. It's unbelievable that we are totally blind to it. We lack in governance, which is known as corporate governance. We are talking about startups, we're talking about entrepreneurships, we're talking about getting a job, but all of this depends on something called corporate governance. And the reason why we have so much of defaults in loans, in non-performing assets. And what we call corruption is because we do not have a structured corporate governance in place. And for corporate governance to work, you need to have auditable trails. It should be auditable. That means an auditor, third party, will come after a year or maybe 2 years or maybe 3 years and look for the trail as to why such a decision was taken. Now, if I put money on the table because of a WhatsApp today, and the auditor comes 3 years back and starts to look for the WhatsApp is gone. The cloud has eaten it up and thrown it out through a thunderstorm. I will not be able to defend my decision. And what happens? I'll be in jail. I had no intention of frauding. I had no intention of being corrupt. But I did not follow the rules of corporate governance. I did not create an audit trail. And I think what I'm trying to say out here, one of the biggest thing as an entrepreneur that person needs to learn is how to follow a certain corporate governance structure and make sure that everything is auditable. People do not willfully default. But since they don't know, they get into some sorts of messes. And that is where I think we lack a lot. So we need to teach communication in 11 and 12. We also need to teach the fundamentals of corporate governance in high school. I have seen a lot of engineers from ISC and IIT and all these big places. They're technologically extremely sound. But they'll not get past the first officer in a bank. They'll not give the money. Their idea is solid. Their team is even more solid. They've got customers. They've got everything in place. But to get that 10 crores or 20 crores or 100 crores of funding, the guy who's putting in the money will want to make sure that I know exactly where the money is going. And I know exactly I'll get a return for the money. We need to teach that as well. But at the end of the day, a business or a person who's into entrepreneur is talking money. When you sell something, Samant, you're asking money for it, right? Unless you want to give it free. Even if you want to give it free, you have to build a trust. Otherwise, the guy will not take it for free.
True.
He'll say, "Kya dhanda kar raha hai ye? Ye mujhe kyun de raha hai ye free? I don't want it. It's happened to you, it's happened to me, it's happened to everyone." That governance is something that we need to really work hard on. What do you think, guys?
So I have a question, like building up on this for Payal. So Mr. Sain said that we need to teach corporate governance. We need to teach, obviously, different forms of communication as a subject. Now, wherever we learn the definition of bhasha in Hindi, बोलते हैं कि भाषा के दो प्रकार होते हैं, मौखिक और लिखित, which is spoken and written. So we always have this spoken and written kind of bifurcation between language. Now, we haven't ever thought what are the different forms of spoken and written communication which we need to learn, and that is what I want to ask Payal. If you were given the chance to make the school curriculum and kind of build it for good communication skills later on, what all would you teach as a part of spoken and written communication?
Okay, that's an interesting question. But before that, I just want to, close the open end of what Mr. Sain said. Something very interesting that he mentioned, right? And the only quote that was coming in my head was ignorance is not bliss. So, governance is a very ignored aspect of many things, and not just startups or anyone, but in many ways we kind of fail that area. So in that area, definitely ignorance is not bliss. So this is something, this is really important takeaway for people who are online or are listening to us. And now we move on to your question, Aditya. So wow, building a curriculum, this is really interesting. You're giving me a lot of power. This is great fun. So I'm going to actually pick up all your requirements, Aditya, and all what Mr. Sen said in my curriculum. And additionally, Also, what I'm going to do is, that was very fun. Those were really important requirements. I'm going to incorporate all of those because they were really spot on and they're really important. Whatever both of you said, right? But additionally, I think it's something that when I started my the podcast today, and I said something about assertiveness. Okay, I think my curriculum will definitely have different forms in the way you can actually talk in a language. So if you become Hindi, for instance, like you said, बोलने वाले communication और written communication में आप क्या क्या डालोगे? तो I think जो जिस तरीके से जब आप बात करते हैं उसका जो लहजा होता है, so the way you communicate is definitely going to be on my curriculum for sure, because it really makes a very huge impact. Even for someone, if he's selling something or if he's doing anything, or you're doing a governance or whatever, and you very rightly, Mr. Sen, had mentioned about something that if you write an email in a very flabbergasted manner, you might just not get the approval that you really seek. So when you're seeking an approval, there is a tone. When you're making a point, there is a tone. When you're being sarcastic, there is a tone. I think that tone of communication is going to be on the top of my curriculum list, along with all the other requirements. Being assertive in a communication is super important. You don't have to be aggressive to make a point. You can be super assertive about what you want to say without being insulting, without being demeaning, without devouring anybody's respect. There's no need to do that really, and you can still make your point. You can still be effective. You don't have to have the light of a million fairies and rainbows and butterflies flying around. Now be optimistic होने की जरूरत नहीं है, but at the same time, it needs to be somewhere in the middle and actually hit the nail in the head. And that's exactly what communication is all about, and that's the art. Communication is not a very commercial area. It's basically the art. Some people inherit it, from their stars or whatever you want to call it, but you can certainly even learn it and brush it up. So that would be one. The second is going to be definitely, your physical communication with your language. So, for example, and if there are students, please don't get offended in the next example that I'm going to give you, because it's going to be physical communication in Hindi. So, for example, if you are saying, "Hey, धमकी," right? यही सेम चीज मैं बात करके भी कर सकती हूँ कि 1 मिनट मुझे बोलने दीजिए. Second. Third is, I think I just have one more point to make here, and if you let me complete, then maybe this might be value adding to this meeting. I'm just saying that there are so many ways to be a gunda. You don't really need to be a gunda to be a gunda. You can actually make your point either ways by just being assertive about what you want. And like I said in the first thing, Samant aapne jo kaha tha, you should also learn when to shut up. So that's exactly what even I said, that you need to know when you need to zip the lid, right? If you're not adding value to any conversation, please zip the lid and maybe just listen and then make a point after you've understood what you want to say. It's not always necessary to say things for the heck of it. So yeah, moving on to my curriculum. So these are the points. And written curriculum, oh my gosh, so much to talk about written, right? Aditya, you made a very, very valid point about we have so many things we are writing these days. I mean, even for today's session or your 69th session, or you've done 69 and 69 sessions might have taken you so much communication. There is, the posters you guys created, you went on Twitter, you went on LinkedIn, you went on WhatsApp, you went on Instagram, you came to Facebook. I mean, you might have created a vlog somewhere. We will create a vlog later and answering any questions that the audiences have today. So much to communicate, so many options to communicate. I think I want to teach all those options. Creating a vlog very effectively, like holding the phone in your hand and still making a point, or answering via a video, is actually an art. You just can't just get it right every time. You have to practice it. You have to understand it. And there's another thing that I wanted to include. I think I had a session and
Aditya, please mute yourself. बहुत ही response आ रहा है, feedback आ रहा है. Thank you.
They said that, ma'am, I'm an introvert. What should I do? If I go for an interview, Of course, interview is a very important form of communication because you are selling yourself. There is 15 minutes of your life. Everything is going to be, it's high stakes if there's an interview. And if you're an introvert and you don't know how to connect, then you might just end up losing that opportunity. So that would be one of the very important things in my curriculum, that it's not necessary that if you're an introvert you will not be able to communicate. It's just a myth. I think it's just these cliches that we believe in, that somebody is shy and hence that person cannot be a good communicator. I sincerely wish to disagree with this. A shy person can be an absolute firecracker in a meeting. I have seen that in meetings, and that would be definitely on my curriculum as well. Introverts, extroverts, how to communicate effectively.
Okay, another question.
आदित्य जैसे से
Sure.
हाँ, क्योंकि करिकुलम और स्कूल के बात आया है, आई हैव टू इंट्रोड्यूस माय सेल्फ. लाइक आई डोंट नो, देयर इज बैड कम्युनिकेशन, लेकिन मैं गुंडा बन के घुसूंगा इस कन्वर्सेशन में, सिंस इट इज अबाउट स्कूलिंग. So one suggestion that I do have, maybe how we can incorporate communication skills into school curriculum and how to develop that is obviously college में तो बोलते ही है कि do summer internships, and startups are usually the busiest during the summer. Interns free में आते हैं, they just want a certificate, and startups get work done with zero cost.
Yeah.
At the same time, school में they give you random topics like okay, Geo, is it a boon or a bane? ये topics over summer write an article or something like that. So instead of that, maybe a government can take an initiative. Of course, I'm talking government. Usually जब government को कोई नाम लेता है, it's usually like government को ये करना चाहिए. But there's a humble suggestion. But I think government can actually undertake different startups and give them a certain funding out of the education budget, and in a way that those particular startups teach the kids, and they can make batches and take them under the wing for 1 month and teach them exactly hota kya hai, making a report or talking to your team and how to communicate. Of course, Aditya talking to a client and talking to an intern and talking to the core team is going to be completely different. And me talking to my friends or in the podcast, yeah, outside talking to my room owner or something like that, is going to be different. So I think the students from a school age, one, they can get good career counseling, career guidance, as to they understand exactly what happens on the field, the report and the work. Jitna dikhta hai on stage, कि oh, they're getting so many crores of money, oh, all the fame. Lekin back end pay, oh my god, so much paperwork, man, seriously. So they get the ground reality. Also, they get to learn how to speak within a team and within a corporate setting. Of course, not everyone has to be an entrepreneur. Large audience is going to be working in a corporate or an office setting. So they understand how to speak in that setting. So it's going to be a start. So back to Aditya for your question.
So Samant addressed a very important point there. We talk differently with different people. So I would talk to my core team member in a different manner, a mentor in a different manner, and an audience in a different manner. Because it would look very weird if Samant ने बोला friend से मैं अलग तरीके से बात करता हूँ. If he talk the same way he would talk to a friend in the podcast, so he would be like, "Hello and welcome to day 745 of our daily friendship talks." So आज हमारे साथ that would be very weird. So I think. With that point addressed, Payal made a very good point about interview, and I genuinely feel कि चाहे school का essay हो, चाहे interview हो, especially
Okay,
GD.
before you go to that, Aditya, sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
If we communicate differently with a different audience, then we lose our own authenticity. And I think that is a problem if you lose your own authenticity. So if you
I
can
want to do this for you to say that, because really, I 100% agree with you. इसलिए मैं कुछ बोल नहीं रही थी. I was just letting Aditya finish his question. But Mr. Sen, you have actually taken the same thought. So thank you for saying that. Please continue.
Thank you. So basically, if you're talking with a person who is in a position of power, and you're talking to the intern whom you want on board, you should be talking in exactly the same manner. That is what makes a great communicator, I think.
Right. So basically, Yeah, Payal.
I have a supporter. Okay. That's good.
Of course, I agree with you completely wholeheartedly. Sorry, Aditya.
Yeah, so more than the tone, I think what we can address is like, so obviously, I totally agree with you on that because there's a saying also, treat every celebrity like a human and every human like a celebrity. So yeah, more than the tone, it's almost like that, so let's say if somebody is elder to you, so that's why there is, this way of communication, which many people might disagree with, but many people do follow that. So let's say there is somebody younger to me. So in Hindi, we would say tum, probably tu. So now there are some people who you will find that even to younger ones, they'll be like aap, you know. So that's always there. And then there are some people who would, huh?
I call you up.
Right. So it's almost like acknowledging. Sometimes it's about acknowledging the difference. Also, it's not about like demeaning the other person because he's younger to you. "Abhi, chal," not like that, but it's almost like that. It's just the tone in which you can probably make that difference visible. कि हाँ, मतलब let's say if there's a mentor, so you cannot hold him or her accountable. But if it's a teammate, because there's that kind of agreement between you, you can make them accountable. So probably I was discussing from that end. But yeah, I totally do agree with you that you should treat humans like celebrities and celebrities like humans.
Sometimes I do get some feedback from Aditya saying कि भाई जो रियल लाइफ में तुम अपने दोस्तों के साथ जैसा बात करते हो थोड़ा कम कर लो. Try to be more formal when you are having a team meeting या फिर on the podcast sometimes या फिर when you're talking to the students directly in the school. Sometimes like भाई थोड़ा कम कर लो अपना try to be more formal. So कभी-कभी those disagreements have been there.
But that's the point I was trying to make. So picking up on what you all said, especially what Mr. Sen said and what you guys said, right? Now, all of this is interconnected. So I'll just quickly connect it for all of us, right? So, TK, you said that, Aditya gives you a feedback saying, you need to talk to certain people in a certain manner because they are your students, they are your colleagues, they are your, management board members, whatever. So different, sort of levels. In the worldly, ways of working, we have different levels for different people, which is fine. It's okay, accepted. Aditya mentioned more than the tone. It's important to make sure that there is a you basically maintain that decorum of how you want to talk, etc. So that's second. And I supported Mr. Sain with the big heart that I sent and the big thumbs up that I sent. I want to talk all of that. All of you are right. The way it is interconnected, it is totally depends on how. So you still can be yourself. It's not necessary to not be yourself while you're talking to somebody. Right now, I'm 100, 100, whatever, 500% myself. If my friends are on Facebook and if they are commenting, please, if you are listening to me, do tell me if I'm not being myself in even 1 second of this conversation that is happening right now. Otherwise, then my point is null and void. So I think, guys, the important thing is, like I said, when I said tone, what I meant by that is you're still gonna be yourself, but it's just gonna be the how that will actually matter. For example, saying the same thing in different ways to different people is still going to be you because you want to say it. It's just a matter of how you say it that really matters. So, for example, there is no one size fits all thing here, to be honest, right? I call up even to a newborn baby is because I talk like that. So it's just, I mean, if my friends are here and if the ones with kids, if they are online, please tell me that I actually have always called their kids up, even though they are like really chotu. It doesn't matter. तो ऐसा कुछ है नहीं. In Mumbai, college friends and all, we call each other two because we've given each other that comfort, that liberty. That doesn't mean I don't love the children I call up. It's just that it's how I like to, address somebody. So it's not like a textbook which says if you call somebody up, only then you respect that person. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. I think these are just cliche things that we have, which is going on for so many years, and we just refuse to change. So let's not do that. As long as you are not crossing the line of respect with somebody while talking to them, as long as you are not demeaning them, like I said, being integral and being respectful. Even a two tadak is absolutely fine. As long as you are in the circle of respect. So I think respect is the foundation for any communication, whether it's with a child, whether it's your best friend, your husband, boyfriend, wife, whoever, student, it doesn't matter. uh, तू भी बोला तो क्या हुआ, as long as you're respecting that person, it should be from here. And the tone will certainly then matter in these areas of to and out, the very difficult lanes of communication.
Now it's my turn to give you a heart. Because I have always spoken about the how. The how defines the person.
Absolutely.
And I'll go back to Shannon Lee's TED Talk. Shannon Lee is the daughter of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And she talks about how. It's a 9-minute, some seconds talk, short talk. And Aditya posted it the other day. It's a fantastic video on actual communication. How. The how is the bridge between the why, your purpose, and the what.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Payal, and okay, here we go. There we go.
I think Payal had a more accurate shape.
Oh well, okay.
But
she did it in an artistic way. I did it in a romantic way.
you tried well to copy her.
Oh no, I didn't.
I think it bends more.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but some amazing,
guys,
amazing things we discussed. And
Right.
just a question. So, and I think you can also jump in and answer this, right? So we are discussing an amazing point, which is how do we acknowledge the differences at the same time? How do we maintain the same person? So it's not like I think this is something which amazingly came up on its own. We hadn't planned it, but बहुत ही अच्छा point है ये कि हम कैसे वो तू, आप और तुम में अपनी ओरिजिनलिटी मेंटेन रखते हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं अपने फ्रेंड के साथ अलग पर्सन हूँ और मैं एक बच्चे के साथ अलग पर्सन हूँ और मैं अपने से 20 साल बड़े इंसान के साथ एक अलग पर्सन हूँ, बट एट द सेम टाइम एज पायल टॉक इट्स ऑलमोस्ट अबाउट सिग्नलिंग कि वो म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट एस्टैब्लिश करना कि किसके साथ आपका कितना कंफर्टेबल लेवल है, किसको अगर आप तू बोल रहे हो तो आप भी कंफर्टेबल हो और जिसको आप तू बोल रहे हो वो भी कंफर्टेबल है, जिसको अगर आप बोल रहे हो तो वो भी कंफर्टेबल है, कहीं उसे ऐसा ना लग रहा हो कि इसने बहुत बड़ा डिस्टेंस तो नहीं क्रिएट कर दिया हम दोनों के बीच में. So I think these are a few things, which is always subjective, and that's why there are so many amazing opinions around it. And great how Payal and Mr. Sen covered it. इसी से related एक और question, and Samant you can also jump in and answer it. तो स्कूल में जैसे सामंत कह रहे थे कि जब भी हमें निबंध लिखना होता है, which is an essay, हमें रटवा दिया जाता है एक तरीका, वृक्ष हमारी धरोहर, तो हम हमेशा शुरू करेंगे हर सिक्के के दो पहलू होते हैं, और उसके बाद जस्ट राइट व्हाटएवर जो हम रट के गए थे घर पे वो हम लिख देंगे. तो हम पता नहीं फॉर सम रीजन वी आर नॉट टॉट टू बी जेन्युइन इन आवर कम्युनिकेशन इन स्कूल और इन कॉलेज. वी हैव टू राइट व्हाट इज बाय द ऑर्डर. आपने फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन से क्या सीखा वो कुंद्रा बाबा में लिखा हुआ है 4 पॉइंट, आपको वही लिखना है, आप अपना दिमाग मत लगाओ. आपने नहीं सीखा, आपको सिखाया गया है, तो जो आपको सिखाया गया है फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में आपको वही लिखना है, अपना दिमाग मत लगाओ. At the same time, same in formal letter also. So, even apart from the format, you have to write, if you're writing a letter to the editor, the first line has to be through the columns of your esteemed newspaper. So, how genuine should we be in communication during practice? Because actually we have, and this I'll address through an example. So let's discuss, since Payal said interview, let's discuss a group discussion. तो ग्रुप डिस्कशन में हमें बोला जाता है कि आपको शुरू में बोलोगे you will get brownie points. If you conclude the whole thing, you will get brownie points. Let's say एक ऐसा टॉपिक आए जिसके बारे में मुझे पता ही नहीं है. If I stay silent, I won't get selected, even though I'm genuine. कि मेरे को नहीं पता मैं क्यों बोलूँ. I will not contribute positively to the group, probably. But मेरे को force है बोलना because I have to get selected in that interview. How to deal with this dilemma? How to be more genuine? And while being genuine, how to contribute to the actual conversation happening while an interview is happening or while a GD is happening. So would like to start with Payal, then Mr. Sen and Samant can also let me know what their thoughts are.
Oh, Okay, so I mean, all of us have gone through a lot of group discussions and we are trying to get selected, for GMAT or CET and all these exams and all of that, right? We've all tried to crack at taking MBA classes and everything. So even I've gone through that. Everybody has. That's all right. I think the question around if you get so let's just deal it, one by one. So if you get a group discussion, a JD, जिसका टॉपिक आपको नहीं समझ आ रहा है in the beginning and you still want to score some points, उसमें ही introvert extrovert वाला भी point आता है actually, but let's say you are an extrovert and you have a lot of presence so extrovert presence of mind, introvert presence of mind, and other permutation combinations. So let's say you're an extrovert, you're very smart, you have the presence of mind. What you'll do is you listen to the entire conversation and conclude it. So basically, there are 10 people in the GD, and one person shows a leadership quality and sort of starts the conversation. Then दो groups बन जाते हैं, 2-3 groups बन जाते हैं. Everybody is trying to prove that I'm a great leader. कोई गीदड़ होता है, वो शेर की खाल पहन के शुरू हो जाता है. बहुत कुछ होता है ना GD में. Everybody is trying to prove that I am a leader of the group. Some arguments will happen in the middle if there's an extrovert person. No, guys, I think we are moving away from the point. Let's just come back to the point. Actually, let's just, you want to make an impression, just go for it. Fine, you want to be a leader, take the conversation back into where it belongs to. Even if you don't know the bloody topic, who cares? You still made a point. You still got the conversation back to the point. You don't know the topic. How does it matter? You are still a leader because you made sure that the entire herd of wolves is actually coming back in the right direction. So you're a leader. That's number one way to manage it. Second, you don't know the topic. You are an introvert. You don't want to make sure. You want to be like, oh, इसको बुरा लग जाएगा. People are arguing. How can I say in the middle कि तुम लोग चुप हो जाओ और मैं करूँ? होता है. Introverts को बहुत problem होती है. Which is okay. You're shy. But you still want your marks. You want your points. You want your brownie points. You want to show you're a good leader. Listen to the entire conversation. A great way of communicating is good listening skills. Listen to the conversation and then very subtly conclude the conversation. You are still a leader because you concluded the conversation. You get your brownie points.
That's another one for you. Because what I wanted to say was learn from your mother. Now, what do you mean by that? Learn from your mother. If you have noticed in tradition, mothers always eat last. A true leader always eats last.
Absolutely.
That's what Payal said. There is another talk by Simon Sinek on this subject, and he's got a book called Why Leaders Eat Last. Read it. It'll resonate with us, given our heritage, tradition, and culture in India. Why mothers eat last. You have your answer.
And their word really actually is like a stamp on the whole decision, right? And as far as our house is concerned,
that's it.
Women in our house are very, they're very valued for their opinions. I mean, we are all very equal to each other, and there's always this consulting that happens. And I think, that word is the seal, on the final decision. So, yeah, that's leadership.
Right. Okay, so one more question, and I think this might be the last question because we are already past 7, and I could not. Sure.
Olo, thank you. I think Aditya is taking revenge for all the podcasts I didn't give him time.
Okay, go ahead. Make our day.
It's going to be a quick point. Payal ji ne jo bola ki listen to the conversation, maybe help the group get back to the point they have to discuss upon and not ramble, and then summarize and conclude. That'll give you some points. One thing I want to add is maybe take 20% from what Payal said and just add my own twists is, of course, each and every topic, I think, let's say, if you know the topic even a little bit, but you don't know the statistics and the background behind it. That happens with me. Now, if let's say, excuse me, let's say there's a discussion about special education, which I specialize in. Now, I know how to teach the kid. I know what to do. But if you ask me, okay, IDEA Act 19 something, or RPWD Act, or this act, that act, or you ask me what percentage of the population are disabled, I'll say, I don't know. Go look up Google. अगर गूगल पे मिल रहा है तो भाई मेरे से क्यों बात कर रहा है? But what I can add, like like Payal said, listen to the conversation. If you have absolutely no idea what the topic is about, you'll get context from what other people have been talking about, and with that context, you kind of create at least a border of an image. So what you can do is you can tell a story, an anecdote. You can tell an emotional story, or you can even make up one. अभी कोई fact check तो करने वाला है नहीं. So what you get to do is, now if I keep rambling about, okay, India disabled population 2.7%, okay, RPWD Act 2016, IDEA Act this year, nobody's going to remember. Nobody cares. They can find it on Google. But your story is going to stay with them. Okay, I met a particular child who was disabled, and with the help that the organization I worked with, we provided them rehabilitation, and we went to them, and that mother was like, "Thank you so much, आप हमारे लिए भगवान हो." And these emotional factors are going to stick with the people. Even if they're saying the argument against you, it's going to stick with them. Not 2.7 of the population is okay. Ye ho gaya. Okay, what's the next statistic? Let me remember. That's not going to stay with them. Try to make up a story. Even if you don't have a story, make one up. They're not going to fact check. I think stories will stay with the people, the listener. That's what I meant.
Samant, this one is for you for storytelling. Okay. You've got it. I can't do it your way. Okay.
No, but this time you did it better, Mr. Sen.
I'm getting better. See,
I think Payal taught you something new today.
I know. I knew this from before. It's not that.
Yeah, at least I did something.
You did. Yeah, Aditya, you are asking a question again.
Yeah, so I think my last question for today would be a question to the open panel. And that is that I have a mobile and I have an internet connection. And so this is a two-layered question. Firstly, how do I start learning better communication skills? And secondly, should I choose English first or should I go in my mother tongue? Like if I have an option to start first, so which one should I start with? My mother tongue or English? And if I have a mobile with an internet connection, how should I start?
Okay. I think language is just a preference, so it's not something that I will answer, because it's up to the person's situation. If they want to learn English and get better at it, then certainly choose English, because there's one quote that I just wrote yesterday, and I was going to put it up on LinkedIn. I just forgotten to do it because I was looking for a good image. Is be uncomfortable in your comfort zone. Because if you don't be uncomfortable in your comfort zone, you're never going to come out of it. So you need to be uncomfortable in your comfort zone, get out of it. So if your mother tongue is you're already strong at one language and you want to learn another language, it could be your mother tongue as well. It's not necessary everybody knows how to write in their mother tongue. जरूरी नहीं है. तो अगर आपका वो priority है, तो I think you just have to pick that choice. Want to learn English? Then go for English. You need to pick the language you don't know better, and then basically learn it. If your priority is to get into more written of your mother tongue, what written you don't know, then go for that. So it totally depends on the person. That would be the first way I'll answer this question. And what was the second part? Aditya, you mentioned how do I go about it, right? You have a phone and you have an internet connection. Okay. So I think, definitely reading things in a particular language definitely helps. So I'll just give you a real life example, and hopefully that will resonate with other people as well, right? So I'm a Mumbaikar. I think I've already introduced myself last time when I came in, and there are a lot of Gujaratis and everybody that live there, and half of my family is that, and we used to get a Gujarati newspaper at home called the Mumbai Samachar. Okay. And I was very intrigued, and I just didn't know how to read it. And I used to be very bad at speaking it. I used to be very bad at reading it. I used to be very bad at even writing it. And the way my mom basically said is, why don't you start reading the paper? Just to start reading the paper. There's a lot of similarities, because I know written Hindi, Marathi, and a couple of other languages. I can speak them, I can write them grammatically, etc. And I also wanted to get a crack at Gujarati, so I said, no, I'm going to do this, right? I started reading the paper just for 10 minutes to begin with, and started finding out similarities between the languages that I know and the dissimilarities as well. ये क्या है, वो क्या है? So there are 10-15 dissimilarities as well, which I picked up and eliminated the similarities and sort of learned. So now I can write, I can speak, and I can read like a pro. I would like to say that because I've actually done that. So that is one very good way to do it. क्योंकि मोबाइल का ज़माना है, you get newspapers online as well. In COVID, when newspapers are not getting delivered, you do have an Economic Times which is online, the Indian Express is online, everybody is online. So just take your phone, read your news, read your newspapers, the news pop that comes or whatever. That way you are not only just going to be aware of what's going on around you, but you're also going to pick up a new language. So that is the easiest way to pick it up. Otherwise, there are a lot of other things कि आप LinkedIn पे जाइए, वीडियो चेक करिए, वो तो कोई भी गूगल करके चेक कर लेगा. बट ये जो मैंने आपसे कहा, ये मेरे पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस से मैंने कहा है that reading a newspaper definitely helps a lot. It genuinely does. And if you're not very bored of it, you should try. Just as a personal suggestion.
Okay, so read newspapers is Payal's suggestion, and you can do that online also. I think reading up anything will actually help you build your communication skills a lot.
And you can listen to podcasts. You can listen to podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just Aditya's, just keeping in line with Aditya, you should listen to podcasts as well.
And if you listen to one, make sure you listen to ProBano's podcast.
No, you shouldn't listen to a podcast. You should listen to this podcast and this only.
Exactly. वही तो मैं बोल रही हूँ.
Aditya, I want to add the way maybe हमारे ITI के students अभी देख रहे हैं कि कैसे English language को develop करें. I think Hindi they've already been doing that. Hindi they're already good, or the mother tongue you're already usually very good at. What you lack in is public speaking.
Yeah.
And not interpersonal or conversational skills. What I can do is I won't give you a one size fits all, but I can just tell you what worked for me. Is firstly you watch movies. Everybody watches movies. To watch movie with subtitles, but not. I'm not saying Avengers dekho. Yeah, these movies where it's not intelligent dialogues.
Hello. I don't agree with you.
Mr. Sen, we'll get to that argument later. I mean, I'm not saying the majority of the movies where it's not completely intelligent dialogues, but I think you should watch the movies where it's actual conversation between two people, where there's intent behind each dialogue and each word. Subtitle के साथ ही देखो. There's no need to take it on ego कि भाई मैं English अच्छा बोलता हूँ इसलिए subtitle के बिना देखता हूँ. No. Watch with subtitle. Nobody's going to judge you. At the same time, to practice English, you can start off with public speaking ka platform. You won't get to practice. That's natural. You don't get to practice it that often. You can comment YouTube comments in English, or if you're watching this kind of podcast or webinars that you're watching, the questions you ask people that can be in English, or any kind of conversation you try to have. अगर हिंदी में कर रहे हो or any kind of local language that your mother tongue is, mix up करके, if it's Hindi, make it English. If mine is Telugu, or I try to make it a mix between Hindi, Telugu, English, पूरा mix up करके खिचड़ी बना देता हूँ मैं. So try to mix it up to begin with, and then you slowly, obviously, you take things forward and you take it to the next step and the next step. That's some easy things that you already do in your life, and you just need to make that small adjustments to incorporate language or learning a new language.
Okay, I'm going to go totally different. That's quite normal. I don't think language is very important. We in India, we are privileged to learn a minimum of 3 languages. So we learn English, we learn Hindi, and we learn our mother tongue. And most of the people have knowledge of 4 to 5, maybe 6, 7 different languages. It's a privilege. It's a luxury. And let me tell you, other places in other countries, they just know one language. They communicate. And they communicate very well. Look at China. They speak in Chinese. Doesn't matter. But they get it across. Look at the Russians, look at the Germans, look at the Arabs, look at the French, look at the Italian. None of them know other than anything else other than their own language. It's only the people who are in international business, they may learn a few things in English, but if you go and see a United Nations General Assembly and you listen to it, people are talking in their own language and they're getting their point across. So I think we make too much of a language. We should make and focus on what we want to talk about, the content, and what we want to get across. I have had situations, and this is my personal experience. So, and this is in Saudi Arabia. I don't know a single word of Arabic. Maybe okay, I know one or two words. So I had to go and explain to the local branch about a certain change that was required to be done. So I walked into the room, and there with me there was a person from, there are two persons from Saudi Arabia who was accompanying me. I walked into the room and I find out that none of them know anything in English, not even a good morning. Forget it. So I told the Saudi guy who was with me, he was the project manager. I told him, boss, I'm going to the guest house and I'm going to sleep. You handle it. When you finish, let me know. So he said, yeah, you go. So I went and I got into the bed. Suddenly I get a call. They said, Mr. Sen, come fast. I said, what happened? They said, no, they want you. They want me. So I went there. You know what they said in Arabic? They said, we don't want to listen to you guys. We want to listen to the expert. So what? He doesn't know Arabic. He knows the subject. So there I was presenting in English, sometimes in Bengali, sometimes in Hindi. It doesn't matter to them. And this Arabic, the Saudi guy, he was translating on and they were asking me questions and I was answering. And I got a standing ovation at the end. It's all what you know, and as Payal said, how you say it. So I did not talk to them like, oh, you don't know English, so you're useless. Or they did not listen to me, oh, you don't know Arabic, so what are you doing here? We spoke to each other as human beings, we communicated, and we got our messages across. That is very important. When you get lost in the countryside in a foreign country and you don't know what to do, the best language that you can have is sign language.
Yeah.
It works.
Exactly. I think it's all about, so just Aditya to Mr. Sen, that was amazing, right? So you deserve one more of this because...
Oh, I've collected so many of them.
Yeah, you did because...
Everybody's going to do one, I guess.
Yeah. So the reason why I sort of resonate with this is I think courage of conviction and self-belief play a very big role when you're trying to put your point across. When I talked about the intricacies of being an extrovert, introvert, this language, that language, I think the point is how you put it across, and it is not necessary that language can be a barrier. In fact, I had gone to one of these sessions with engineering students, which I did mention in my first podcast as well. And there was a very important question that they said that for me, I'm from Marathi medium, and so for me, English is a very big barrier. One of the students asked me this question, and I said, don't worry. If you really want to learn it, you should. But it also matters how much you want to learn it, right? So sometimes we have a lot of books stacked up, with us, and just to make a point saying, oh, I'm very intellectual, I have so many books or whatever, but it actually matters how much you want something to actually learn it. But let's not make it a barrier to success or doing anything or public speaking or whatever. I understand that today's day and age English, it gets a lot of importance, but if you go to France, I mean, they are so proud of French that they'll make you speak in French.
Yep. They will not answer.
They will make you speak in French. I mean, they will. If you don't say bonjour, they will not answer. They don't care. You are from America. You are from Mumbai. You are from bloody wherever. You are in my country. Speak my language. हम इतने डाइवर्स है इसलिए हम उसको ये नहीं बोल सकते. अब जैसे बॉम्बे पुणे हम उसको ये नहीं बोल सकते. क्या बात करेंगे? You cannot expect them to speak in Marathi. You will say speak in English because we don't understand your language. That's the only minimum, bare minimum you can tell somebody from outside because we are super diverse. And that's a privilege, yes. But we should be proud of our heritage, our languages, our culture, and everything. So communication is not just about knowing English. Communication is so much more, than just getting stuck in a language barrier. Just go for it.
Oui, oui, mademoiselle. Merci beaucoup. And further, that was just me saying, yes, yes, madam, thank you very much. In French. I think on that note, it's a good way to end today's podcast. I don't think anybody was there who wasn't smiling through the entire thing. Payal, thank you so much for, first of all, bringing the positivity to our podcast. Already tha, but just upping the ante by tenfolds.
Thank you for having me again. That was so much fun.
Great. Firstly, the audience, obviously, we couldn't read all the comments, but I think everybody was reading. We didn't read them out loud. But thank you for your comments and insights as well. The audience, thank you for watching. And of course, Mr. Sen, Aditya, and Pragya, thank you for coming. And of course, आज के जो guest हैं, Payal, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming back, actually.
Thank you for inviting me and keeping up with me and bearing with me for the second time. You guys are very brave, I must say that.
No, today we had a lot of fun, and
Yes.
we actually discussed some very profound things.
Yes,
But we had fun.
absolutely. Super fun conversation. But I missed the rapid fire. That was really fun last time. Next time.
I was waiting for you to ask me this. You can ask Aditya. I said, oh my God, I have to prepare for rapid fire tomorrow, right?
Now it's
We'll do that in the third episode.
We'll do that next time.
yay, okay. I look forward to it.
So
But
everyone,
today we had even more fun than the rapid fire.
Totally. I agree. It was a
Yeah.
superb conversation.
great, fantastic. I hope सभी को कुछ सीखने को मिला. Definitely, I hope everybody learned a bit. There was a lot to learn. I hope you at least learned something. So everyone, stay home, stay safe, wash hands. वैसे तो कल open हो रहा है most of the country. So I don't know, go out. I don't know, get some air. But definitely wash your hands 20 seconds at least. And like and follow our Facebook page and turn on post notifications to get notified when we do go live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch our live streams on entrepreneurship. And see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. same time with another guest. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.